weeks into this now, and we're picking up with chapter 15. So let's get to it. I sighed. You chortled? Seriously, Jay? Why, yes, I did, he said righteously. Have you ever tried it? It's a lot of fun. I made the mistake of asking what a chortle sounded like and got an immediate demonstration, which cracked the rest of us up. I don't think I could manage it with the same aplomb, my friend, I told him. He smirked. Probably not, no. It does require a special sort of skill. You can say that again, Dave muttered. Stella quickly spoke up before Jay could comment. So did you ever renege on that promise? Of course not. There's a reason I added the severe deprivation clause in there. Well, that was evil. She got over it. He paused. Mostly. I glanced at her window, not surprised to find it dark out. The cell never got what I might consider bright, and when we got into the story, I often lost track of time. Mentally, I attempted to add up the days, coming out at around a week already in jail. A week and a lot of bruises. How long has it been dark out? An hour or two, Dave said innocently. You let me waste valuable breath at night? Jay asked, attempting to look intimidating. He failed. Yes? I hate you. Stella gave him a sharp nudge in the ribs, eliciting an eep of surprise. Be nice to my brother. You seem to be enjoying yourself. Who were we to stop you? Sleep time, I said cheerfully, cutting Jay off again. You get to start tomorrow, he informed me. My voice is tired. After only an hour or so of story. Weak. And proud of it, he said, settling down. Stella curled up beside him with Dave on her other side. I wedged myself into my corner again and watched them for a while before eventually nodding off. Rees wasted no time. He reached for the bars and shook me awake the next morning before dawn. I struggled to fully awake. The time in jail was definitely weighing on me. Even a week ago, I would have been caught this sluggish immediately after waking, not being a morning person, but the bruises and rough sleeping conditions were taking their toll. Let's go, Jasmine, he said, unlocking the door. I was a bit surprised, as it filtered in, to find him and not Shorty accompanying the brutes. Where's Shorty? I asked as I stood and made a point of slowly stretching. It's Satan's day off. Now let's go. In a hurry this morning? I asked, trying to seem unconcerned, but not sure how well I was doing. Something like that. Now, do I need to send Kilgore and Juke in, or are you coming out? I'm coming. I purposely went to tread on Jay's hand, but he snatched it out of the way at the last second, forming it into a thumbs up. I felt a brief flash of annoyance before reminding myself he might as well get some sleep. Nothing was going to stop my date with Colonel Rees. I followed Rees down the hallway, carefully working out some of the kinks in my legs between the bruises and low activity levels. After you, he said, motioning me ahead of him. I hobbled into the room and he smirked. Still a little sore, are we? Maybe not as confident? I rolled my eyes. You wish, Rees. You know, I think I missed your first name. We are on a first-name basis, aren't we? I asked, voice as sweet as possible. How about we stick with my title? Show you respect in your dreams. He grinned and shook his head. If nothing else, it's always amusing to chat with you. Don't be disappointed that I do not share the same sentiments. I folded my arms across my chest. Let's move on to the questions so I can refuse to answer and get back to my lovely little cell. Why were you planting explosives around the city? It was only around the weapons depot, and that is the question, isn't it? I replied mildly. I was very much aware that the brutes had worked their way around behind me. Care to not play semantics and supply me with an answer? What happened to starting with the small stuff? He shrugged. I don't feel like it today. Enough stalling, Jasmine. Answer me. Can you blame me? Now, he said flatly. 5, 4... My mind scrambled for an answer. A grin skipped across my face as one occurred to me. I was trying to blow it up. At his look, I shrugged. I answered the question. You're the one who failed to specify. Very well. Why did you want to blow up the depot? Who ordered you to? First question is simple. People like you store your weapons there. I forced a wide smile I didn't feel, since I knew where my answer would lead me. And I doubted the three would appreciate it much if the second biggest city and one of their main strongholds went up in smoke under their watch because they were too stupid to... I didn't get to finish my thought as one of the brutes grabbed me by the shirt, spun me, and slammed me face first into the nearest wall. My breath all left me in a whoosh, and I struggled to recover as he set me back down with a thump that jarred my knees. I reached up and wiped my bleeding nose. That was fun, I muttered, holding my hand there. Any of you got a handkerchief? The brutes just stared, but I got a ghost of a smile out of Rees. The strangest things amuse you. True. Now that we've gotten your impression of both me and the intelligence of our current rulers, how about the second question? Going to need a repeat on that one. Went clear out of my head somewhere around being slammed into a solid wall. Again, that smile drifted across his face. Who ordered you to blow up the palace? No one. Jay and I came up with that little treat all on our own. That was actually a flat-out lie. The plan had always been to take out the weapons depot and maybe the barracks if we could manage it. You're lying. Only a little, I said sarcastically, wrist still pressed against my leaking nose. Honestly, you have no proof that I am. In fact, I think my feelings are hurt that you don't believe I'm capable of trying to blow up parts of Greensport all by my lonesome. Well, okay, with Jay's help. What if I said that Jay told me who ordered you to do it? Give me a name and I might believe you. I knew he was bluffing. Disadvantage to them leaving us together, although I'd never say that out loud. If Jay had spilled about Bo, he would have told me. So you aren't part of the Freedom Fighters? No. And then I asked for it. Haven't you realized by now that no one likes you or your employers? Most people think you're all slimy, no good. His look turned dark, and I ducked on reflex, dodging the first swing. Unfortunately for me, though, the second brute managed to snag my shirt and repeat the earlier wall slam. As I stumbled back from that, very off-kilter now, I ran straight into a fist to the gut. I doubled over, wishing I'd been able to curb the temptation to bait them, and here I kept giving Jay crap about it. My feet were swept out from under me, and I ended up on the floor in an ungraceful heap. I immediately curled into the fetal position, but not before a boot connected solidly with my stomach, driving what little breath I'd regained out. As I struggled to breathe, I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to focus on anything but the beating, although it was far from easy. Finally, some indeterminable time later, it stopped. I cracked open my eyes, someone's boot swimming into view. Insults get you nowhere, Jasmine. Of course it was Rees. No, but they still make me feel warm and fuzzy inside, I managed, still trying to catch my breath, which meant not that much time could have passed. He snorted. Give me your hand. I didn't argue, reaching up. He pulled me to my feet. I braced myself on the wall with the other hand, the world spinning unpleasantly beneath, or maybe it was around me. Are you part of the Freedom Fighters? If you're so sure you know the answer, why are you asking me? I asked wearily. They had definitely rebruised every bruise and found a few no places for them too. I fought to stay upright. I want to hear it out of your mouth. Then you're going to be disappointed. There's always next time. Boy, oh boy, I can't wait, I said with all the false enthusiasm I could muster. It's always such a joy to talk with someone. I trailed off, realizing now would be a very good time to beat back the temptation. As wonderful as you, I finished. One of the pair growled. My catch had fooled no one. I kept a wary eye on all three, but out of breath as Rees merely said, Take her back to her cell. Jasmine, we'll talk again soon. I managed to salute before the thugs grabbed my arms. Even if Rees had managed to brush off my almost insult, it became apparent the brutes weren't as forgiving. Instantly, they twisted my arms up tightly behind me. I heard two very distinct pops before the black rushed up to claim me. Jez, come on. Don't leave me hanging. The voice got more insistent. Jasmine, Lockholm, don't you dare not respond. Wake up. Distantly, I knew the voice to be Jay's, but it was too much an effort to try and pull myself all the way back as pain crawled along my body. There was a pause, and then he spoke again, and, even as muddled as my mind was, I was certain he was no longer speaking to me. Aren't you going to do something? There's no reason. She just fainted. Overexertion. Overexertion my ass, Jay said in a quiet tone I knew meant danger. I felt I should warn Rees, but it was a hard enough fight just to focus on the voices and make meaning of the words. She should be able to respond or wake up. For all I know, your damned thugs put her into a coma, Jay shouted. I winced, the loud noise cutting through my head and setting it pounding, as if I needed more pain. Steady, Jez, Stella murmured soothingly from somewhere nearby. I managed to open my eyes a little, Stella swimming into semi-focus. She smiled worriedly down at me, or at least I think she did. Everything was blurry. Dislocating a shoulder isn't going to result in a coma. 2 dislocated shoulders and at least 1 possibly broken arm might. You already told me you didn't mean for it to happen, so fix it already, damn it. She'll be fine. As soon as she's back up and moving, I'll have someone check on her, okay? Or you could fix it now. She just fainted, Jay, Rees said more firmly. Does that look like a faint to you? She's in shock. I closed my eyes, my tremulous hold in the real world starting to slip again as my arms continued to throb deeply. Which means she'll be just fine given a bit of time. Except for the fact your brutish sidekicks just finished using her as a chew toy, Jay growled. It was a bad analogy and I wanted to protest it. Who knew what they've done to her on top of this? Damn it, Rees, for all I know she could have internal bleeding. Now you're over-exaggerating just to get a rise out of me. A rise out of you, Jay echoed. Of all the... I missed the rest of my friend's rant as my hold finally slipped and the darkness reclaimed me. Jez, come on, Jez, I need you to speak to me. Stella said you were awake earlier. Please wake up. I'd never heard Jay come so close to true pleading as I struggled my way back towards consciousness, very vaguely aware he'd been talking to me for a while. Hey, I murmured, managing to get my eyes open a crack to squint up at him. The world hadn't studied much in however long I'd been out. I couldn't miss his wide, relieved smile, though. Hey, you, how are you feeling? Got run over by horses, I said, or tried to. I think only every other word got out intelligibly, but my mind was clearing a bit. The pain was not quite so severe this time. I suspected that meant I'd been out for a while. My eyes slid shut again despite my best efforts. Hey, stay with me, Jez. I'm trying to convince Rees to patch you back up, but I'm afraid I ended up just calling him names. It's all good. I cracked open an eye. Good names? He laughed, but there was a definite worried twinge to it. Yes, very creative names. I did us both proud. Sleep now? No, I need you to stay awake. No coma, I said, feeling like a 2-year-old again who didn't know and couldn't find the words she wanted. The pain was too much to allow for any sort of clear thinking, though. Don't feel good. Of course you don't. 2 dislocated arms and more will do that to you. Still there? I murmured. Yeah, I'm still here. I wish I had the energy to muster a glare. Arms still there. He frowned. Yes, of course. Get rid of them, I attempted, not at all sure how clearly it came out as the blackness slunk out from the corners of my vision. No, Jez, damn it, stay with me. I slipped off before I could respond. I was aware of waking a few other times and attempting to hold up my end of the conversation, but it never lasted long. It's been 2 days, you God's forsaken bastard. Do something. That was Jay. The snort that followed was, without a doubt, even in my beleaguered brain, Rees. You'd try and kill me if I got within a foot of the door. Only because you're just staring. If you were trying to be useful, that would be a different story. Sure, a promise that would remain only until I step within reach. You're just making up excuses now. You need to fix her, Rees. What were you doing the last time I stepped up to the door, then? Rees asked. How he managed to sound smug, even with that question, I had no idea, but I wanted to get up and shake it out of him. It only made my head hurt more. Kill you? Jay said. I could picture his vindictive smile. You call her Jez, and yet I thought her name was Jasmine. Come off it, Rees. This isn't one of your stupid interrogations. Rest assured, if you don't help her, I will figure out how to kill you. Doesn't need to be pretty. Tell me why, and I'll fix her. The silence stretched on so long, I almost thought I drifted off again before Jay spoke. Fine. Now, I did, missing Jay's explanation. Something nudged me in the side, bringing me back, as conscious as I had managed so far. All right, you 3 in the corner. Jay, you behind the Harpers. One move, and we're out of here. Don't you dare let the brutes take her. Kilgore and Juke are only here to make sure you behave. I'm not planning on moving an inch, Jay said. There was a shuffling noise, and then the arms encircled my wrists, starting to lift me. My right arm flopped listlessly, and I whimpered, fresh pain shooting through me. Damn you, be careful! I'm being as careful as I can be, James, so be silent. Rees's face appeared in front of me. Now, for the left side. I braced myself, but still yelped as my left arm burst with lancing white-hot pain. I started muttering curses under my breath, although I found that, in all the movement, my mind had partially cleared. Or at least, I didn't feel quite so close to the darkness. Hurts, I managed. Sorry, Rees said, hefting me upright. Not you. I had to wonder why he was being so nice. I didn't want to have even the slightest kind thoughts about this man. Only a few more feet, and we've got a stretcher, okay? Okay. He mostly dragged me the remaining distance. You aren't bleeding internally? He asked me quietly, looking suddenly worried or maybe nervous. Don't think so. My voice cracked. Why is my voice scratchy? You've been, rather noisy the last few days. I managed to look at him. Why? You've screamed almost every time you've moved for the past 3 days. You are a bastard. That faint smile skidded across his face. Probably. You seem better. Clarity and pain? I asked, remembering to catch the automatic shrug before I could try. That would certainly ruin my clarity. All right, Jez, I'm going to lower you down. It's going to hurt, so be prepared. Already hurts. He carefully lowered me to the ground. It wasn't until he went to move my arms that the clarity vanished. I think I screamed as I heard Jay's voice. Get well, damn you, or I'll never forgive you. There was something amusing about that, but I was sucked down before I could identify it. There, she should be fine now. She'll be right as rain from the dislocations in a few days, but the break in her left arm was bad. It could easily lead to permanent stiffness in the limb. That needs time to rest and heal, understand? Yes, thank you, doctor. She'll be pretty out of it and sleepy for a few days. I'm giving her some strong medication to get her through the pain. You have to leave her alone for at least 2 weeks. Between this and the other injuries, you've weakened her body too much for it to be able to handle the type of punishment you inflict. I'd prefer a month, but I understand why I'm sure that's not likely to happen. The doctor sounded decently disgusted. I hear you. Thanks again. Heard the scuff of feet and then the click of a door latch. You can open your eyes now, Jez. I know you're awake. Barely, I managed, throat dry. Pretty sleepy. That will be the medication. How are you feeling? Less like shit, and I want to keep my arms. He snorted, amused. Even now, she shows a sense of humor. My sense of humor never leaves. I yawned, enjoying the feel of a real bed underneath me. So I've noticed. Get some rest, Jez. You're calling me, another yawn. Jez. I've been informed that Jasmine's a bit of an antiquated name for you now. Jay told me you took the name Jez after we killed you. I now recalled hearing part of that conversation. Needed something not so obvious. Indeed, something was bugging me. Why were you nice? He stared at me. When? When you were pulling me out of the cell to get me here. I'm a nice guy at heart. Not buying it. Try again. He shrugged, an action I reminded myself again not to try anytime soon, even if the pain had faded to a steady but dull ache. Maybe I just need you alive. After unceremoniously sentencing us to death upon arrival, still not biting. You sure woke up quickly. Why? I pressed, determined to get it out of him before I succumbed to sleep. He didn't say anything, watching me. You got a tip, didn't you? That had been my gut instinct, and now I was sure I was right. You need to know more about the freedom fighters. They've got you nervous because they've been pretty damn successful lately. You think they know a lot more about you than you do about them. And someone put in a bug in your brain that Jay and I are with them and can tell you what you want to know. Good work, Super Sleuth, but no tip other than General Opalin, he said dryly. Plus, my theory actually goes beyond that. Do tell. You and Jay are not only freedom fighters, but highly ranked members. Oh, stop. I'm quite flattered, but you're a little off the mark. It's just us. Our mistake was going too far, too fast, and getting caught. Now you're just making things up. You're definitely not small town time or that stupid. Oh? I prompted mildly, both curious and a bit worried about where his deductions might go. The best I could do was play innocent. Because you're damn smart. No stupid small-timers, Jez. I deal with them every day. You and Jay are far too good. In fact, a surprised look flashed across his face as something occurred to him. I get it. I frowned, not liking where this was going. You meant to get caught. Or at least knew it was a distinct possibility. You knew you might easily be throwing your life away when you took this job. I was shocked at his intuition, my opinion of him reluctantly raising a notch. Now does that make sense? My voice came out remarkably steady considering how accurate he was. I thought you just called me damn smart. Thanks, by the way. If I'm so smart, why the hell would I put myself in a situation with no way out? I didn't say there was no way out, he said with a smile. And anyway, it doesn't matter, because you found something you believe in bigger and more important than you. I know your type, Jasmine. You're more than willing to sacrifice yourself for the greater good. Actually, I'm really as selfish as the next noble, but I'll take that in the spirit in which it was intended. He didn't even bother telling me he didn't believe me. But what about Jay, he mused, actually stroking his chin. I wanted to push myself up so I didn't feel quite so vulnerable lying down, but even the slightest movement of my arms increased the dull pain closer to sharp, so I gave up on it. What about him? He studied me. He lost someone, like you with Brighton. Someone close. How right he was. I kept all expression off my face. Oh? Who is it? I laughed, unable to help myself despite the pain. You have got to be kidding me. No, I did not expect an answer, but it was worth a shot. Sleep well, Jez. We'll speak again soon, he said, patting me none too gently on the shoulder. I winced. Not too soon. I heard the doctor. At least 2 weeks. And you think you need me, which I'll take. I don't need any part of you functional besides your brain and mouth, Jasmine, so I would caution you to tread carefully. Mm-hmm. You have wonderful nightmares too, Colonel Rees. He chuckled and pulled the door shut behind him. I gave in to the draw of sleep, although the blackness somehow felt gentler this time. Early the next afternoon, Shorty appeared to escort me back to my cell. I discovered, upon waking in the morning, that the only actual cast I had was on my left arm, stretching from midway up my upper arm down to my forearm, mostly encompassing my elbow. I asked Dayton, who bluntly explained that my left elbow had been broken while both shoulders were dislocated. Even with the time delay, the doctor had said there was nothing to be done with my shoulders except to limit use until they felt better. Jay impatiently held himself back as Shorty let me in before all but tackling me in a huge hug. God's breath, Jez, you had me worried, he exclaimed as I gently pried him off after a suitable amount of time. I felt flattered, tired, and sore. Thanks, Jay. I promise I'm fine now. Or, well, close to it. I then greeted Dave and Stella as the boy attached himself to me. I let him, glancing out to make sure Shorty was long gone. Rees had a brainstorm last night. Jay frowned. What about? Us, the freedom fighters, and our motives. I quickly filled him in. So if it seems like he knows more than he does, it's just conjecture. Well, you've got to give the man credit. He's smart, if nothing else. Color me impressed. Kind of makes me wish he was on our side. Tell me about it. I swear if I hadn't been falling asleep, he would have picked everything up just following his stream of thought. I gently convinced David to let go of my waist and settled carefully back in my corner, careful not to jostle my shoulders too much. Although the pain was dull for now, I was not anxious to test and see if it would get worse if I stressed them. After a bit of silence, Dave spoke up. If it's okay with Jez, maybe Jay could tell the story for now? I glanced at my friend. Where were we? I've forgotten all the fun. He snorted. We just finished at the pond. Ah, right. That brings us to West Corner, considering it was only a couple weeks later. Sounds right. Let me do a quick conversation, and then you're welcome to it. He saluted as Dave leaned forward. Jess headed down the hallway towards Beau's office, unable to catch snippets of his conversation with Mick. I want to, that was Beau. Untested? It'll tell us. What about his... It'll give me to see how is a field test? Yeah, he doesn't about his... That makes a certain amount of sense, Mick said as Jez entered the room. Hi, Beau said. Jez? Mick nodded to her. Hey, have you decided on our fifth wheel? I was thinking Jay would be a good choice, Beau said. She grinned. Jessie'll hate it. It's perfect. Not exactly my thought process, but that works too. You do realize I'm still opposed to this, especially when you refused to take Reardon. Jess stayed silent, knowing Mick was showing a lot of trust by protesting in her presence. The two of them had come a long way since the early frigid days that seemed half a lifetime ago. I need you and Reardon here running things, Mick. You know that. It won't be more than a week, I promise. We both know it could potentially be more than a week. This isn't the area around Cavern Hall. Mick, Beau said with a sigh, I need to do this on my own, please. Mick's gaze flicked from his old friend to Jez and back again. Jez? We'll take care of him, I promise. We'll all keep our noses clean. He nodded. I suppose that's the best I can ask for, although that is an argument in favor of not taking our newest favorite recruit. Jay will behave himself, Beau said, shooting Mick a significant glance that Jez did not understand. He'd better, or I'll kick his gods-be-damned ass, Mick said sourly. Jez stifled a giggle, always amused at the few times the second-in-command swore. I'll go let him know he's coming. We'll be leaving tomorrow morning, bright and early. She tossed a loose salute. Sounds good, she said, ducking out of the room and going to find Jay, ready to impress upon him how important his good behavior was. She got distracted by various events and didn't find him until later the day to let him know about their upcoming trip to West Corner. She explained briefly that every couple of months, Mick or Reardon would take 4 others and travel to one of the larger villages to meet with one of their local informants and discuss, in person, what was going on in Tira. This would be Beau's first time going, since he dug his heel in when the topic had come up a week earlier and insisted. Jez understood his need to prove himself away from the 2 older men. Jay took a deep breath. I mind zipping my mouth shut as Stella snorted. My friend beamed and started talking. At least now I knew a signal to let him take over. It was obvious and over the top, like most things about Jay, but it worked. So let me get this straight, Jay said. I get the dubious honor of being one of 5 people who get to waltz out of our safe hidey hole into enemy territory to chat up some snitches and then hike all the way back? How many people have died doing this? Jez laughed at him. No one has ever died. The 3 have never even gotten wind of it. I still say it's ridiculous and dangerous. She grinned. I'm being ordered to go, aren't I? Her grin widened. You're all completely bonkers. Utterly bonkers, he said, throwing up his hands. Your point being? Just want it on the record before we all die of stupidity. She shook her head. We leave bright and early tomorrow morning, so be ready. That leaves scant time for final farewells. And who exactly do you need to say a final farewell to? You barely know anyone but the 4 of us and Mick. There's Duncan. He'll survive. I don't think you and Mick are really close enough to warrant them either. Jay had the grace to wince. No, your point is well made. Alas, onward to our deaths, noble friend. It's wonderful you never lose your sense of humor. What would be the fun in that? Just try and behave on our trip, okay? Don't I always? No, Jess said in concert with Jessie as their friend peered from around the corner. I am hurt to the very core. You spear me with your harsh words. Right here. He clasped his hands over his heart and dramatically collapsed to the floor. Jessie nudged him with the side of her toe. Nice acting, killer. He grinned and hopped to his feet with a flourishing bow. I do my utmost. My most fair maidens, I will see you anon, he announced, and turned, skipping off down the corridor. As he did, a frown crossed Jessie's face. I'll be right back, she told Jess absently, and rushed after him. Jay! Hey! Jay! He paused and turned, a wide grin on his face. Have you finally? He trailed off, taking in the serious expression on hers. Jessie? Is something wrong? He asked a bit nervously, grin fading. Your friend who died. Jay's expression went stony as he saw where this was going. What about him? He wasn't just a friend, was he? He was your brother. You're James, Bry's younger brother, aren't you? His jaw worked silently. Yes. Why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want to. Whatever. I'd appreciate if you kept this particular piece of gossip to yourself, he said stiffly, trying to corral his spinning thoughts. He thought after 2 weeks without recognition from them, he'd been safe. Something he'd just done had given him away, though, and he resolved to be more careful. I don't need to be compared to my wonderful older brother and spend all my time listening to the darling memories you have of him. Jay, he cut her off. I need to go make sure my sword is nice and sharp, he said, spitting on his heel, and was within a few steps, running down the corridor. Before he even realized it, he found himself back in the room he shared with Duncan, Richard, and another newish recruit. He kicked at his bedroll angrily before glaring around the room. He knew he needed to walk off his energy, though, so he spun, jammed his hands in his pockets, and took off towards the exit. About halfway there, he heard a familiar voice. "Wait up, Jay!" He made a face, but slowed. A moment later, Jessie caught up to him. "Jay, we need to talk." "Not sure what we need to talk about," he said, speeding back up. A hand on his shoulder whipped him back around. "Don't be an asshole, Jay." "Don't be," he repeated. "Look, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings or bring up a sore subject, and it's clear I did both. I'm sorry, okay? It's your life, and I shouldn't have pushed. I promise I won't tell the others. I'm sorry. Now, if you want to go off and be a pisspot, it's your decision, but you don't do angry very well." "But I do hurt really, really well," he thought, steadying her face before turning and continuing towards the exit. "Come on." He'd gone another couple feet before realizing she wasn't following. He rolled his eyes, anger slowly ebbing as he glanced back at her. "What part of 'come on' do you not understand?" "Come on where?" "For a walk. I need to be outside right now." She frowned, but trotted to catch up with him. He led the way outside into the bright summer sun and found a spot on the rocks near the entrance before sitting down. She settled in beside him silently. "So, how did you figure it out?" "The skipping, mostly. But once I recognized that, the personality was a dead giveaway, too." "Does anyone else know?" "I'm assuming Bo and Mick know, but no, I don't think anyone else has made the connection. We've had to grow up and move on a lot in the past 6 months, and it's not something any of us like to think about." "Did he die?" "He saved my life right before he died. The man who got him, he had almost just killed me before Bri intervened." She hesitated, glancing at him. "Why don't you want everyone to know?" "Bri and I were best friends ever since I can remember. When Oakland's men killed our parents, I thought we'd mourn together and maybe in the future join the freedom fighters. We were all that was left, after all. Instead, he ditched me the morning after their funeral with no warning, instructing my aunt and uncle not to let me out of their sight, and leaving me a note saying I was too young to join, but he couldn't wait. I didn't feel young, not after losing both my parents at the same time. I was too furious to do anything at first, and then my life sort of stalled, and I could barely get out of bed some mornings. When Bo's letter came saying Bri had died, it was the kick I needed to get my life back in gear. Waited a few months and got myself in shape before tracking the freedom fighters down. I'm still mad at him, but what I told Jess is true. I want to honor his memory. What we're doing here is right." Jessie sat forward and hugged him tightly. "I'm so sorry, Jay. I won't lie if someone asks me outright, but I won't go around yelling it either. I wouldn't expect you to." He paused. "You're so going to use this as blackmail, aren't you?" She laughed. "Only sometimes, I promise." His face fell and he aimed a picture-perfect pout at her. "You don't stay down long, do you?" "Dull family trait," he said with a quick smile, hopping to his feet and hauling her up too. "Come on, let's go pack. It's almost time to go hiking to our doom." Before Jessie could reply, he went on blithely. "I'll make eggs one morning." Eggs." "Eggs?" she repeated. He grinned. "I make killer scrambled eggs." Annie raced headlong down the corridor, choosing turns and stairs at randoms until she found herself bursting into the main courtyard of the castle. She took a quick glance up at Wren's window, hoping he wouldn't see her, and continued her flight past the people working there and out into the main street of Oakbridge. It was somewhere around this point that Annie realized she was crying, big tears rolling down her cheeks. "Damn it," she swore, swiping furiously at them. She picked up her pace to a jog again, weaving skillfully among the people doing their business along the street. She finally made it to the walls and bounded up the stairs. A soldier stationed there glanced at her, reprimand on his lips before recognizing her. Ignoring her tears, he saluted her and returned his gaze to the area beyond the city. She slowed down and headed along the walls, ignoring the soldiers who shot her curious looks. She finally reached a point close to the castle, almost directly below where she and Ren had stood the night before. Once there, she slumped against the wall and buried her face in her hands, allowing the full flow of tears she'd been holding back by sheer force of will. After a couple minutes, she forced herself to stop, wiped her face, and stood, leaning against the wall to stare out to the farms beyond the city. She couldn't understand how Vlad would even suggest killing Ren. She heard his hollow reasoning. She heard all the things unsaid and gotten the meanings behind everything that had been said, or at least most of them. A few of Soren's comments had intrigued her, but she pushed aside her curiosity for now, trying to figure out Vlad. They had all had the same childhood. Granted, she and Soren had it worse than Vlad a lot of the time, but her eldest brother's determination as a child to try and protect his younger siblings had landed him in trouble more often than not. None of them had felt a moment's sadness when their father had died when Annie was 18. And yet, somehow Vlad had grasped his legacy with both hands. It had been Edward's idea originally to overthrow the High Castles, and he had the backing he needed by the time he died. But Edward had wanted it for himself, not for the next generation, but just his personal legacy. Even Annie had seen that. He'd fully wanted the glory for himself. And yet Vlad had stepped into the leadership role, bringing his siblings along with him. Annie hadn't protested. What else was there for her? Soren had been the Soren she'd gotten to know as an adult, only even worse, and said nothing either way. Now, Vlad was showing Edward-like tendencies more and more, and it was getting near impossible to pull him out of them. Abruptly, the picture of Ren as king popped into her head, and she smiled. Ren, she knew, would make an excellent king. He was empathetic, kind, fiercely intelligent. He had all the attributes needed to run Tira well and bring it back from the destruction she and her brothers had wrought. Even as she thought it, she knew there was no place for her beside him. She knew what she'd done when she'd stood with her brothers. There were only 3 options available to her at this point: death, imprisonment, no doubt far worse than Ren's own incarceration, or hiding for the rest of her life. She had to admit she didn't relish any of the possibilities, but forced the thoughts away before they could run to their logical conclusion. At this point, what would happen, and there was not likely a damn thing she could do about it either way. She shifted and felt the jab of paper in her back pocket. She tugged the letter from Ren to his brother out and stared at the plain envelope, adorned in Ren's simple script with the name Beau. She folded it open and began to read. Dear Beau, I'm sure you know of and about me, even though I don't know you. I guess I wish things had been different and we'd been able to grow up together. I have the feeling our mother is no longer alive, but on the off chance she is, please wish her all my best. Honestly, I don't know what else to say. It seems odd to even believe I have a brother, let alone one who's doing so much to help our country. No offense meant, of course, as it seems to be in High Castle blood to defend Tira. I know it has been kept silent that I'm still alive, so this letter might come as some surprise. I hope you realize how many tries it has taken me to get this right. It is amazingly difficult to write a letter to a sibling you've never met. Good luck with everything, Beau, and I hope we can meet together on the other side of all of this. Sincerely, your brother, Ren. Annie liked that he'd signed it with his nickname. It seemed appropriate somehow, despite the fact the two had never met, and if Vlad had his way, they never would. She scanned it again, running her finger along the tight, almost elegant handwriting. Then she tucked it back in the envelope and sealed it, slipping it back into her pocket. She wasn't sure yet how to get it mailed to the Freedom Fighters' hidden camp, but she was certain something would come to her. Perhaps Trigger Rees's vaulted prisoners down in Greensward could help. She nodded. Jackson was due to head down there any day now. She'd speak to him about it. In the meantime, she scuffed at the stone childishly with her toes. She still wasn't certain what to do about her elder brother, or even if there was anything she could do. She loved Vlad dearly. After Soren had escaped their house when Annie was 14, Vlad had become her protector full-time, and while he wasn't quite as diligent about it as the middle sibling, he'd shielded her more than she could have managed on her own. As such, she found his current thought processes ridiculous. He was leaping to conclusions and acting on stupidity by beating Ren and then threatening to kill him. If he'd come to her, she could have argued uselessly with him, she realized. The brother that had helped protect her and supported Soren through thick and thin was slipping away from them both. Even in the years since Edward's death, since they'd escaped his chains, Vlad had focused single-mindedly on the very things Edward had wanted. Frustrated with the way her mind was moving in circles, she kicked the wall and spun, slumping against it to watch out inside the city. She eyed it critically. Didn't look any different from the time she'd visited with her brothers before the coup, but as she watched a small gathering of men and women, a group of soldiers in their colors bustled up and laid into them with clubs, ordering them to move out. Annie vaguely recalled a recent edict of Vlad stating that large groups could not meet without prior approval by the city council. She thought that breaking up a group of maybe 10 was pushing it. That was something Ren would never allow. She wondered absently if she should feel more regret over her own actions as she toed at the ground, making patterns in the dust. She'd been all around the country during her exile from Oakbridge, and it seemed to her there were less smiles, less hope on the face of the peoples. She'd been able to move almost without recognition, and knew she saw things her brothers never would. Annie debated mentioning it to Soren. He'd taken steps to lend assistance the few times she'd insisted when getting a hold of some ignored letter or another. In a way, she regretted what it had done to the country. Ren would make an excellent king, there was no doubt about that in her mind, but if her brothers hadn't acted, she would have never gotten the chance to spend time with him, let alone fall in love and have that love returned. She shrugged. What was done was done. There was no changing the past, only affecting the future. Which is why she was determined to save Ren, to get him out of the castle, despite the fine line that meant walking between saving the man she loved and betraying her brothers. No, she thought after a moment, betraying Vlad, and then she wasn't entirely sure why she thought that. Perhaps it was the changes she could see in Soren recently, the small little shifts back to the boys she'd known, who she'd crawled in bed with and cried on, and who called her Annie when no one else would. An escape by Ren would absolutely spell the end of their time as rulers, perhaps spell the end of their lives. Could she do that to them? She pursed her lips, abruptly realizing she'd walk back to the stairwell she'd come up on. She glanced back over her shoulder at the castle. Ren's worth it. Tira's worth it, she said to herself as she bounded down the stairs. Maybe it was her task to finally right the wrongs she and her brothers, and ultimately her father, had caused. Annie slipped in among the crowd, threading her way back towards the castle. No matter what she did, she thought, as she smiled for the guard for one of the side entrances and walked in, heading for Ren's room, change was coming to Tira. She peeked silently into Ren's room. Shutting the door with a quiet click behind her, she spotted him asleep on the bed. She stood, back pressed against the door, watching him. Then she nodded decisively. This change would be for the best. Chapter 16. I guess I can't be mad that Jessie knew, but still, I never asked her outright, so she never lied to me and kept her word to you, I said, as Jay took a quick break to grab some water. Yep, you were pretty clueless. Thank you ever so much for your words of wisdom, I said, before yawning. Why don't you get some sleep, Jess? Stella asked. We'll wake you if anything happens. Not that it's likely until we get breakfast tomorrow. Dinner had arrived without ceremony as usual while Jay was talking. He paused for the minute so the guards wouldn't overhear, and then picked right back up. I settled back in my corner, wishing for a better place or way to sleep, but I knew curling up on the stone would only be uncomfortable and potentially impossible, even with how exhausted I was. Despite my discomfort, I drifted off rapidly to the sounds of the other three chatting. Somehow I slipped through the arrival of breakfast because I didn't wake until Jay gently shook me. Wake up, breakfast's here. I straightened up, wiggling myself backwards using my legs, which were still, by far, the most undamaged part of me, and then eyed the wooden spoon and bowl. I could spoon feed you, my friend said. Just the suggestion was enough for me to carefully reach out with extremely sore arms and pick them up as I glowered balefully at him. To my amusement, Stella punched him in the arm hard, winking at me. He yelped and rubbed it with a hurt look. Jess can't right now, she said. How's it feel? I'm stiff, and it hurts to move, but if I'm slow, it's okay. Add to the fact that I was starving, since I hadn't eaten much in the previous 5 days, and nothing at all for 3 of them. I think you should have gone with the spoon feeding, David said wickedly, and received a punch of his own, no doubt gentler, from his sister. Behave, she admonished. Not fair. I could punch you again, she offered sweetly. He quickly scooted over to the door. No thanks, she smirked. Then it's fair. I hate being the youngest, Dave muttered. Jay reached over from his position at my side and ruffled his hair, which only earned another protest. There's nothing wrong with being the youngest. Jess and I both are. But I'm a whole 9 years younger. Jay absorbed that and then nodded. True, you are. Dave eyed him expectantly. And? Was there supposed to be an and? I choked back laughter at the indignant look on the 10-year-old's face. Yes! Oh, afraid I'm fresh out of ands. Not fair. No need to get excited about it, Ladster. But, Dave sputtered, aren't you going to offer me some words of wisdom on being a much younger sibling? Can't say as I can, considering Brian and I are only a couple of years apart. Jez? I started, having been absorbing the words but zoning out, still sleepy. Huh? You're not a much younger sibling, right? Nope, Colin's only about 18 months older than me. Well, okay, technically I'm a much younger sibling, considering Kent is 10 years older than I am, but I never spent much time with Kent in general, let alone by myself. I make a great younger sibling, but I don't know about being significantly younger. Well, there you go, Ladster. We can't help you. Dave heaved a sigh as Stella cocked an eyebrow. Ladster? Yup, like it? It's interesting, she said diplomatically. He grinned. At first I was thinking youngster, but then I liked lad better, so when they actually came out of my mouth, they got all twisted and combined to Ladster. Silence greeted that statement. Did he really just say that? Stella finally asked me. I always knew he spoke without thinking, so I guess this just confirms it. Disrespectful, the lot of you, Jay muttered. It's not like I said anything we don't already know. He pondered that, nose wrinkling. Point. So if the first time for Ladster was an accident, why did you use it again? Instantly, my friend brightened. I thought it had a nice ring to it. Don't you agree? I had a smile by focusing on my bowl. Once I had it under control and had finished eating, I looked back up. Did you get any further in the story last night? No, I figured it wouldn't be nice to leave you out, considering you might have wanted to add something, so I entertained our illustrious companions with stories of my childhood, including a few focusing on escaping Marguerite's clutches. Marguerite was, I knew, Jay's older, very much in the straight and narrow cousin. I'd first heard her name shortly after Jay's arrival, on our journey to West Corner, ironically. I wondered if he'd mentioned her. Why, thank you. You're very welcome, Jessie. Hey, I did absolutely nothing to earn the nickname, I complained. Sorry, he said in a tone that sounded anything but. Just where we are in the story reminded me. At my glare, he gulped. Okay, let's get back to the story, he said with false cheer, and charged ahead. Jay joined the others in the main room for breakfast early the next morning. Bo smiled at his disheveled appearance. Not a morning person? Actually, I love mornings, he lied, stifling a yawn. He did not, as proven by his initial meeting with Mick. After his conversation with Jessie the previous afternoon, his brain had refused to turn off for hours. When he'd finally gotten to sleep, he'd been restless, plagued by uncertain dreams. Ready to go, then? Let's, he said, forcing a falsely cheerful note into his voice. Jessie lightly whacked the back of his head. We're not going to die, genius. He grinned. Aw, too bad. His soon-to-be traveling companions exchanged amused looks as he plopped down between Jessie and Rye to grab a quick bite. What am I getting myself into? Bo wondered out loud. You can still back out, Mick said. The captain shot him a glare. Mick, the other man shrugged. Just saying, that's all. Let's go. The quicker we get moving, the quicker we get back, and the less likely I am to go insane, he said, sliding off the bench and offering his hand to Jez. She took it. Are you implying you're still sane? Are you implying I'm not? She smirked, nudging him in the side. I hate you. No, you don't. I most certainly do. No, you really don't. The two turned, still arguing, and headed for the exit. Do they do that often? Jay asked, as he jammed one last bite of bread in his mouth. Often enough, Jessie said, hopping up. Come on, at this rate, they'll leave without us. Jay shrugged, shouldered his pack, and went to follow, but a hand on his shoulder stopped him. You keep them safe, you hear? Mick asked gruffly, concern reflecting in his eyes. Yes, sir, he said with a brisk nod. We'll get back safely, I promise. Good, he said, and turned to speak to Reardon. Jay watched him for a moment before hurrying to catch up with the others. He met them just inside the entrance, each with a pack like his slung over their shoulders. So, where are we headed again, and how long will it take? Good-sized town called West Corner. Probably a solid 3 days of hiking, maybe a bit more, depending on the weather and the like, Bo said, stupid argument with Jez either somehow resolved or forgotten. And chances of us getting caught? Slim to none. Great, he said, as he fell into the rear. Jez and Bo led the way, talking quietly, while Jessie and Rye trailed them, mostly silent. He expected at least one of them was not a morning person, and the other respected that. It didn't take long for him to start humming, even though it was early. It was a gorgeous early summer day, but the tree cover of the forest kept it from getting too warm as it edged towards noon. Without consciously thinking about it, he began to bounce and skip in time with his humming. I love the skill. You should be a dancer. He froze at the end of a hop and looked up, turning scarlet as he realized all four had stopped and were watching him. Why, thank you, Jessie. I appreciate the spirit in which that was attended. As they all continued to stare at him, obviously fighting laughter, he made a shooing motion with his hands. Get on with you. We've got a lot of walking ahead of us. Jez finally gave in to her grin, but obligingly turned and continued. Bo waited until he was level with Jay, then fell into step beside him. You don't mind that I dragged you along with us, do you? Of course not, boss. I get horrible cabin fever if cooped up too long and can't control it. You can sometimes, Jessie threw over her shoulder. Bo raised an eyebrow. When she's coming after you with death in her eyes, it's best to retreat, Jay told him solemnly. Ah, yes, I know what you mean, he said, gaze going to Jez's back. So you should, she called, like she could tell what he was thinking. The five lapsed into easy silence, Bo keeping pace with Jay. He had to wonder if it was to prevent his singing or dancing, or for no particular reason at all. Your turn to say something, Rye, Jay said finally. I have better things to do with myself. Jay stuck his tongue out at her back. Glad to see our maturity level is already rising. He turned it on Bo, which got him laughing. They made good progress by the time the sun started to dip close to the horizon, and they began to look out for a place to rest. They found a sheltered clearing with about an hour left of sunlight and made a quick camp with a small fire. Bo figured they could risk it considering they were in such an isolated area. The next morning, they were up with the sun. Jez kicked over the fire until there was little evidence left, and the five set off. By mid-morning, they were at the shores of a large lake. According to the maps, it's called Lake Kirapiri, Bo said with a shrug. Kira what? Rye asked. What kind of name is that? Ancient alien, Jay said, staring out at the crystal-clear waters, probably untouched by man on this end for years. Means shines bright. It was no doubt named during the generation that Alia occupied Tira before Logan the Liberator, and I guess Logan didn't bother to rename it. Silence greeted that statement. As he turned to continue, he realized that, once again, all four were staring at him. "And where, pray tell, did you learn that?" Jez asked. "My older cousin, Marguerite," he said, and then immediately cursed himself in case Bri had talked about her. It seemed he had from the brief expression on Beau's and Jessie's faces, but thankfully Jez and Rye looked as clueless as ever. She was obsessed with ancient languages and history. I attended a lot of school when I was little at her insistence. "And you retained it? That's pretty impressive." "I fought it, but it was the one activity with her I didn't mind. History's fascinating." "Why can I picture that?" "Because my intelligence shows in everything I do." Honestly, he'd been predicting laughter, but the rest took it more seriously than he expected, or at least with just smirks and amused looks. Jez patted him on the head. "Exactly, Jay," she said lightly. By the time night fell, they were getting close enough to civilization that Beau decreed they could still have a fire but needed to keep watch. Jay drew the short straw and got the middle shift. Jessie shook him awake with a far too cheerful grin. "Your turn, sleepyhead." "Bah," he grumbled, even if he was instantly awake. Years of mixed success with sleep since his parents' death made it easy enough to wake up at odd hours without issue. He accepted the bow and arrows from Jessie and laid both the quiver and his short sword down beside him as he settled in. By the time he was comfortable, Jessie was fast asleep. He was deep into amusing himself by creating song lyrics to some popular musical tunes when something caught his eye. He sat up straighter, nudging the fire with a stick behind him to heighten the small flames. There it was. Again, a flash of brightness just outside their encampment. Definitely eyes. He slid an arrow from his quiver, notched it, and aimed before realizing the pair of eyes were not alone. There were at least a dozen peering in at them. He carefully reached out and kicked Beau's side. "What?" he mumbled, still half asleep. "There are eyes!" That woke Beau up, and he sat up carefully, spotting them a second later. He reached over and snagged an unused torch, shoving it into the fire until it sparked and caught. Then Beau waved it towards the eyes, all of which immediately shied back, even as the light exposed the watchers. The captain burst out laughing, hastily covering his mouth so he didn't wake the others. "Dear gods, Jay, they're rabbits. Little bunnies!" He grinned, even as he snuffed the torch out and settled back in. "Next time, only wake me up if it's people or ravenous wolves, okay?" "I bet they had fangs." He yawned. "Uh-huh. I'm sure that's it exactly. Fangs. Wake Jez up at the end of your shift. For now, I'm getting some more shut-eye." Before Jay could come up with a suitable retort, Beau was asleep. When he woke Jez an hour or so later, she stretched. "Anything interesting happen?" "No? Why do you ask?" he said, and quickly curled up before she could decide if he sounded a touch too innocent. Of course, his attempts to salvage his pride were immediately ruined the following morning, when Beau regaled them with the entire story over the breaking of the camp. The resulting teasing lasted on and off all morning before Jez gently redirected the conversation, for which Jay was grateful. Even his long-lasting patience had started to run dry, and he appreciated that Jez had noticed. When they reached the road, Beau drew them aside. "All right, here's the plan. Our cover says we're from Holly. What do we know about it, Rye?" "Good-sized town, population of a couple thousand, mostly specialized in timber and farming. On the banks of the Tyre River, mostly south, but a bit west of here, near the eastern Alia border. Need anything else?" "Nope, that should about do it," he said. "Everyone got that?" "Yes, but how in the world do you know that?" Jay asked. "When I first started sitting in on the tactics meetings, most of it went right over my head, so I decided to do something useful instead, and studied facts on Tira's larger towns and cities." "Good idea," he murmured. "Jess and Jay, you two will be twins." Jessie laughed at the identical expressions of distaste that appeared on their faces. "Jay, I want you to act a bit clueless, like you pay attention to nothing and retain nothing. A real daydreamer looking at the world from a different angle. I'm sure your skills are up to the task." Jez's expression shifted to amusement. Jay scrunched. He wasn't fully opposed and could handle it, but he wasn't sure if it was necessary. "Are you sure? Why?" Beau's face switched into a smile. "I think it will do us some good. You'll hopefully be able to go places and get people to open up in a way we won't be able to. They'll think you aren't paying attention, so not listening. And Jez and I are a couple." "Big surprise there," Rye snickered. "And you two are my cousins and thus siblings." Jessie tossed him a salute. "No problem. Everyone's got their fake names down too, right?" he asked, since brainstorming them had been one of their conversations during the hike. They all nodded. "Good, moving on." He crouched, pushing aside some leaves to expose the dirt before drawing a rough map of the area. "We're here. West Corner's here, and the road runs this direction," he said, pointing out the landmarks. "As you can see, we're just south of the city. Considering that Holly is south of here, it makes more sense, since we're supposedly on our way home, to come in from the north and leave to the south. If we cross the road here, unseen, we can cut across the backcountry until we meet up with the road that comes straight into West Corner from the north. Got it?" "Looks easy enough," Jessie said. "We should get there in time for dinner, if all goes off without a hitch," he said, straightening. Do we expect a hitch? Jay asked. Bo winked. No one's died yet. People keep saying this, and yet I'm having a hard time believing it, he complained. Come on, we should get moving. If there's a lot of travelers, it might take us a while to find an opening to cross. Same goes for the road from the north, Bo said, adjusting his pack, and then heading for the crossing. Annie hesitantly moved over to Wren's bed, reaching down and running her fingers lightly along his hairline, pushing hair that had gotten shaggy with time off his cheek. He stirred, but only shifted positions, a small sigh escaping his lips. She patted his shoulder gently before moving over and settling herself in one of the chairs by the window, turning her gaze to the faint bustle of the courtyard. She was tempted to shut it. Winter was not the most conducive time for fresh air, but knew that Wren needed that small attachment to the outside world. It hadn't yet gotten old for him after only a couple of days. She was dozing off herself, worn out by her unsettled thoughts and the day's trauma, when she had heard a small, faint, familiar, yet out-of-place noise. She blinked awake, pushing herself from the chair, trying to track its source before it came again. This time, she identified it immediately as whimpering. Wren had drawn both legs up close, eyes squeezed shut, and a deep frown etched on his sleeping face. He shifted restlessly as she rose and sat beside him on the bed, stroking his cheek. Shh, it's okay, Wren, she murmured. His hand shot out and closed around her wrist, tighter than she expected. Her breath caught, memories swarming her before she pushed it aside. It's just me, Rennie. At the nickname, his eyes fluttered open, though he seemed confused. Annie? Yup. Only now did the confusion fade and his grip loosen before he let go. Oh, sorry, he mumbled, as he carefully pushed himself upright, wincing. She suspected the motion tugged at his broken ribs. No need to be sorry, she said lightly. He started, not making eye contact. Having a nightmare. Honestly, Wren, you think I don't recognize the classic signs of a nightmare after growing up in my family? Be serious. There isn't a night that goes by without at least one of us, and usually all three, having a nightmare. Even if my brothers won't admit it. Soren barely sleeps at all, when he can avoid it. Oh, he bit his lip. Sorry. Forget about it. What was it about? Same old. Did I miss a conversation somewhere in a relationship? That tells me very little, she said lightly. That startled a small smile out of him. It's of the night my father died. Even half asleep and obviously disturbed, Wren's ability to be diplomatic never failed to astound her. He hesitated, staring at his hands. Except, instead of getting waylaid by Soren outside my father's rooms, I make it in before he's killed, but can't do anything to stop it. I'm sorry, she said softly, reaching for his hand. He clutched it. He shook his head. It's not Soren and Vlad in the dream. It's something vaguer and less human. Wren let out a brief laugh. Wouldn't be as scary if it was your brothers. I know by now just how human they are. She untangled their hands so she could wrap it around his shoulder instead, resting her head on top. My poor Rennie Muffin. He groaned. Hey, she said brightly. Can I ask you something? Sure. Can I sleep with you? Wren turned to face her so quickly he almost slid off the bed, only her arm around his shoulders keeping him up. Can you what? Okay, so subtlety isn't my strong suit, but I must say, I am deeply hurt that you find the idea so outlandish. We're being watched, he pointed out, seeming to regain his equilibrium as his tone went dry. I'm not really into that sort of exhibitionism, and I think Vlad would take offense. She really did try to keep in the giggles, but failed miserably. Okay, you redeem yourself. What I meant was, can I stay in here with you for a few days? Of course you can, but what's wrong with your room? Nothing. Then what am I missing? I'd rather not talk to Vlad for a while. We had a disagreement. What would you define as a disagreement? I might have screamed at him that I never want to talk to him again. Might have? Okay, definitely did. What in the name of the gods did he say? After I yelled at him? I don't know. I left. How about before you yelled at him? She turned her gaze out the window. She didn't want to answer, but she'd started the conversation, not Wren, and it wasn't fair not to warn him. She cringed at her wording, but even more at how true it probably was. What if Vlad went behind their backs and came after Wren? Yet another reason she wanted to stay with him. He said they should kill you to keep you from hurting me. He didn't realize I was there. Kill me? Wren repeated and let out a low whistle. Whew, I didn't realize he was that serious. I thought it was more of an ego thing than an actual desire to cause me harm. She shrugged. He did break your ribs and sprain your ankle, but I think it is still more ego talking. Ego in the form of Edward, she thought, but didn't say it out loud, as always aware that someone could be listening in. The point is, he said it and didn't see anything wrong with it, and I'm not okay with that, so I'd rather avoid him for the next few days, until... She trailed off, not at all sure what a fitting end to that sentence would be. Do you think he'll apologize? Annie snorted. He'll apologize, all right, but that doesn't mean he'll mean it. And you think hiding in my room will prevent you from seeing him? Not really, but it makes me feel better. She pointed at the couch. That'll be fine. I don't need to actually sleep with you in any sense of the phrase. If anyone gets the couch, it'll be me. If anyone, she echoed, and let a mischievous grin stretch across her face, figuring they could do with a little lightening of the tone. That's a very ambiguous statement. Does that mean we get a choice? He burst out laughing. I'll take the couch tonight. You're absolutely no fun. Think of the guards' reactions. I'm more thinking of Vlad's reaction. No, Soren's. Definitely Soren's. I would not want to test him if we were to find out we were up to shenanigans. She clapped a hand over her mouth to try and contain her giggles at his word choice. As you shouldn't, Soren said from where he leaned against the door jamb. It was a testament to how comfortable even Ren was with her brother that neither of them jumped. Instead, Ren grinned at him. See, Annie? Justified. Then, he glanced at her, and she was fairly certain he read it as correctly as curiosity over what Soren had said in response to the threat to kill him. How'd Vlad react? Annie asked her brother. I thought for a moment that what you'd said gotten through to him, but when I attempted to convince him to take a vacation and give himself a few days to relax, Edward came out again. Out of the corner of her eye, Annie saw Ren shift slightly, pursing his lips as he looked between the two. So, I told him he was acting just like Edward, and it needed to stop now. Then I walked out and haven't seen him since. I assume he's off sulking somewhere about how unfair the world is being. She studied him before deciding her instinctive reaction would be well received. So, she walked over and hugged him tightly. Thanks, Sunshine. The nickname was almost as old as Annie, but she'd only used it a few times recently, and before that, not in years. He carefully returned the hug, and she could feel his smile, even if he rarely let her see it. He deserved it, and more for what he said. Still, you defended me, and you didn't have to. She stepped back and smiled. I love you, she said deliberately, and saw something relax in his eyes, saw even more of the brother she'd grown up with. I did have to, not that you're not very capable of doing it yourself these days. His gaze started to Ren and then back again. I need to get back to work. One of us needs to be. He'll get around to apologizing. We'll see if I get around to forgiving him. A slight smile, almost more the idea of one, whisked across Soren's face. Love you too, Annie, he said softly, and was gone. Ren could no longer contain himself, jaw dropping. Did he just... What was that? That was Soren, she said, knowing her grin stretched from ear to ear. That was Soren as he should be. Gods be damned, he said, sounding impressed. She kissed his cheek. So you never answered if I could sleep here. Of course you can, he said, and then inexplicably started chuckling. She eyed him. Did Sunshine's admission throw you for this much of a loop? His grin widened at the nickname, but he shook his head. After you watched me eat the other day, I made the comment that next you're going to watch me sleep. Soren overheard and said that Vlad wouldn't let you. Guess I've really hit rock bottom, huh? You were obviously watching me before the nightmare. She stuck her tongue out and then slugged his arm. Hey, careful there. I'm an invalid. Not too much of one, she retorted, grinning. Really? He asked, waggling his eyebrows in an over-exaggeration. She giggled. Really? I'll smack you if I want. You don't want to try it again. Want to bet? She stuck out a hand, but he snagged it and used the momentum to flip her back onto the bed. He grinned down at her. She came up sputtering, but couldn't keep up the annoyance at his expression, temporarily carefree and unshadowed for once. It's what you get for not keeping your hands to yourself, he said solemnly. She giggled, flopping back and watching him out of the corner of her eye. This is war. He smirked. Then it's Ren 1 and Annie 0. Excuse me, it starts now, mister. Nope, it's a well-known fact that battles are often fought before the war officially begins. That means I won the first battle, and it's become a campaign now that we've declared it a war. Cheater? No, I just know my war facts, he said smugly. Doesn't make you any less of a cheater face. Who fought it so hard to admit his feelings? I'd say Soren, but after that last encounter? She snorted, plucking a pillow from his bed and flinging it at him. He ducked, easily caught it, and then made as if to pound her with it. She squeaked, squeezing her eyes shut and throwing her hands up in some blind attempt to block. When nothing connected, she cracked open an eye to see him, laughing silently. She lowered her hands, glaring. No fair, you cheated again. Oomph! She said, as he smacked her with it the instant her guard was down. Hey, she managed before he dropped the pillow and started tickling her in the side. She squirmed, dissolving to giggles as she half tried to get away, not wanting to hurt him and enjoying herself enough she was in no hurry. Finally, something occurred to her and she reached up, grasping his cheeks between her palms and pulling him down to meet her, kissing her firmly. When they finally broke apart, surprise and something like satisfaction spilled across Ren's face. She smirked and slipped out from underneath him while he was still recovering. One for me! He let out a laugh and dropped back onto the bed, much as she had a moment before. He held up 3 fingers. 3. Don't expect your lead to last, mister, she said, still trying to catch her breath and sound stern. Just you wait. Just try it, Annie Oplin. I'm on a roll. She raised an eyebrow. I thought I was the devious one. I'd say spontaneous, he said, not devious. And I can be spontaneous when I want. She made a point of giving him a look and then bursting into laughter. You? Spontaneous? He glared. Not funny or cute. She settled herself on the couch. I'd say that's another point in my favor. Now who's the cheater? Her eyes widened innocently. Not me. I never, ever cheat. He finally sat up, flashing her a grin. Oh, right. I forgot. My mistake. I'll forgive you this once if you promise never to do it again, she said magnanimously. Promise, and you're welcome. For what? For cheering you up. We both needed it, she pointed out, but smiled anyway, taking his point to heart. But I started it. Did not. I did when I asked if I could sleep with you. Wren paused, plainly debating that. Damn, how come you're always right? It's a gift muffin, and now I think about it, it's a tied score. What? How? If battles can happen before a war, then me asking that definitely counted as a won battle. He opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again, and then subsided with a slight sulk. She grinned.